Okay, so I don't know if this is the best setup, but here we are nonetheless. We're just here to talk eyeshadow. One thing that I love doing is like low-key recommendations. Obviously there's different preferences here, and what I own is a little bit more expensive compared to some people's budget. You know, some people don't want to spend an arm and a leg on makeup. That's totally fine. I spend more on eyeshadow than I do anything else in the collection. So I use drugstore powder, but my eyeshadow is going to be higher end. Nonetheless, just want to sit down, chit chat eyeshadow. These are kind of like if I had a minimal collection, if I only could keep so many, what would go to the grave with me, something like that. I want to say there's a couple of honorable mentions in this, but realistically it's like if I could only keep 5, this is what I'm keeping. Without further ado, let's just kind of roll on into it. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, all of that stuff that I'm supposed to kind of keep up with, but realistically, I'll try and link the things that are still available down below. Now, obviously, I'm a smaller content creator, so there are a couple things here that might not be easier to get. They're still worth talking about, so let's hop into it. I feel like this was long. I do want to first say that nothing here is in order as far as my least favorite to my top favorite. It's just kind of like, let me grab what I've got and show you all as I pick it up. The first thing I want to talk about is like my go-to travel palette. It's kind of just my one and done. It's what got me through when we moved from our previous house to the house that we're currently in. It's probably going to be the eyeshadow that I take with me when we move again. It's going to be the eyeshadow palette that I probably take with me when we go to visit family later this month. So without further ado, this one right here. It's the Too Faced, the Natural Nudes palette. It looks like this. It's very boring. It's a neutral palette. There's nothing special about it. This, for lighter complexions, goes a long way. I love the gradient in here. I love the layout where you have a corresponding shimmer to the matte. The shimmers are a little bit drier, I will say. A little bit drier, but very easy to work with. I typically use my finger to apply shimmers, so it works better that way for me. Yeah, whenever I use this, I just get the best little neutral, natural look. This is a palette I go to when I don't know what I'm doing, if I don't have a lot of time, but I know it's going to get me through the day, get a look on my eyes, and I'm going to be ready to go out the door. Too Faced is not a brand that I typically support, but I do really like this palette. If they did all of their formulation like this, they would be a lot better in my ranking system as far as brands go. Obviously they're controversial too, but that's besides the point. Specifically this palette, this is a good one. It's superior formulation than anything else that they have made, and I love the hues in here. I love the tones. I love what they did with this palette. It is $52, so that's a steep price point, but Ulta tends to have this on sale a lot of the time throughout the year. So if you can get this for $26, it is well worth $26. But obviously as a neutral palette, $52 is a steep price. For some people, $26 is a steep price, and I totally get that. But for me, I absolutely love this. The next one, you can't technically get it anymore, but I have an alternative, so just hold tight. So the next one's the Sultry palette. One, look how pretty this is. That packaging, I love it. I was actually given this palette. This was limited edition. They brought it back. It's no longer available anymore. But this was gifted to me from a friend of mine, and it's barely used. This is very day to night glam. You got some really rich tones in here. You got like a pop of color. I love pairing like these two together. You've got like signature mattes in here, or signature crease tones. So you have a taupe, you have a warm neutral orangey brown. You've got, again, you have like a slate gray down here, literally called Slate, I think. Yeah, literally called Slate. You've got some beautiful richness in some of these shimmery tones, but you've got a deep brown for more brown toned looks, and you have this black to really amp it up. Wing liner, smoke out the lid, I love it. I'm so grateful that a friend of mine gave this to me, brush included. It's just gorgeous. This is one that it shouldn't have been limited edition, or the first time around it was limited edition. I get that. But once you realize how hyped up this was, why only bring it back limited edition again? Like, why are we playing that game? I'm so excited to have this back. If you can't get that because it's no longer available, ABH did come out with the mini Sultry palette. Now this is only 9 shadows, but you've got the same shades in here. So you have your slate gray, you have your like camel brown, you've got your like taupey brown, deep brown, your black, your like pewter gray shimmer, your light shimmer for the inner corner or the brow bone, your bronzy tone. You have this like more cool toned brown. So you have staple tones in here. I've used this. It's the same formula as the OG. I love this little guy, and I did buy this knowing that I missed the Sultry, like the OG Sultry in my collection. But I will say, I was such a big fan of like the rosier tone in here. So in comparison, they're very similar. These pans are larger in size. I don't know about actual grams per weight here. The staples in this palette that people love so much made this palette endearing to them and to many people. They're in here. So get a lot of the same thing, same formula, same concept, more condensed down, a little bit wider pans. I have no complaints about this. If I never could get my hands on this again, this would have gotten me through. I just will always prefer the OG. The Moondust quads from Urban Decay. These are limited edition, however, I think you can still get them. I got both Galactic Cowgirl and Space Rider. So obviously this one's way more neutral. This one has a little bit more pops of color where you have the blue, the gold, the pink. But I love these. For someone who's never experienced the Moondust shadows, it is like a suspended glitter with a very, very light base to it. The most popular shade is Space Cowboy. This is the one that looks the best on everyone. But when I say suspended glitter, that's what I mean. Ignore my little cut. So this is suspended glitter with like a little bit of a taupe beige base to it. If I'm going to recommend any of them, I would recommend Space Rider here, the one with the pink packaging, because they're just neutral tones. No issues there. You have the classic Space Rider shade in it, which is like the cult favorite. You've got more of like a bronzy tone. You have a little bit of a pink tone. You have this really pale like white icy shade. So a little bit of variety here. But this is the safe bet because, you know, it's very wearable. This one's for my fun girls. You've got this icy blue here. Look at that. That pigment. Ugh. And this gold. I don't even like golds like this. I think this palette has a little more of a base tone to it compared to the pink one. The pink one has a little more of that suspended glitter. But when I tell you guys, oh, I love these palettes. I cherish them, and I'm so happy I have my hands on them. They did retail for $39. If they're still available, I'll link them down below. No guarantees, but if you can get your hands on these, the singles are really good too. These are just $24, so they're expensive. But these recommend. I hope that Urban Decay brings them back every year. If they're going to stay limited edition, I want them to come back every season or every holiday. Getting into a little bit higher dollar, I'm going to mention Natasha Denona. You're going to hear Natasha Denona a lot on this channel because I love her stuff. Now, my personal favorite from the brand will always be the Retro palette. This one is like cool toned, mauve-y. I did rearrange mine, so ignore that. But I'm absolutely obsessed with this row here of cool tones. I love these kind of toppery shades in here. I love the richness of like these berry tones. You get a bit of warmth in here. You get some cooler tone over here. So I can't complain about this. You've also got some really nice transitional shades in here. This for me is my favorite Natasha Denona palette, which is why I'm recommending it and why I'm saying that this is the one that I would take to my grave. There's something about these warm tones and then these cool tones that I can't get over. So I love this palette. I cherish it. It's my baby. So I will say I have another one to mention because I don't think this will be the most flattering on every skin tone. The palette that I would recommend over this one for the everyday consumer, if you're trying to kind of venture into the brand, trying to understand like Natasha Denona, will always be my dream. I think this one will be it's a great recommendation for people in general. And again, mine is rearranged compared to the original layout, but this palette, again, you've got some like neutral cool tones. These aren't as cool toned as the previous palette, but they're still a little more cool toned compared to the rest of the palette. You get your staple black, you get some really rich cream to powder berry tones, which I love my berry tones from this brand. She does them superior because of her cream to powder formula. It's kind of like no other on the market. I don't know. It's really weird. You also get some more neutral tones in here, but they're not as like red based as the previous palette. They're a little more of like a brown undertone. You also get formulation variety in here too. So in this palette, you get this kind of like wet shimmery shade. You get like a traditional like suede metallic. You get these more like wet textured shades. And then you also get this really cool like duochrome, multi-chrome. And then that shift there, you can kind of see that green. So you get to experience a little bit of like fun color with it too. I think this is very cohesive. I know people are a stickler for their black shades. So again, you get that in here. Overall, I think this is very cohesive, and I think that if you are new to the brand, this is a really good palette to go around. I didn't mention this, but these do retail for $70. This one's my personal pick that I would take to my grave. This one is a solid recommendation. I'm actually wearing it on my eyes today. I chose to do this in the crease, this on the outer V and lower lash line. I smoked it out with a little bit of this shade, and then this is all over my lid. But again, it's more of like a satin finish. So I laid that all over my lid, and then I topped it again with this Moondust shadow. I also put this shade on my inner corner and my brow bone. So bottom line, this one's phenomenal for the everyday consumer that wants to add a little bit of luxury into their collection. Moving right along, another one that's kind of unconventional, but it just is a little bit of color, little something different. This is Blend Benny Cosmetics Sugar and Grunge palette. One, I love the packaging. Two, I love the color. So I'm not someone who needs a lot of color in her collection anymore. I used to want like every rainbow palette. I feel like when you first get into makeup, you think having every rainbow palette is essential and it's a necessity. But not really. I've learned that when I do color, I want something a little monochromatic on the eyes. So the one thing I love about this brand in particular is it's woman owned, it's black owned, but the way that she lays it out, I see the vision, I get the vision. So in there you have a blending out shade, a shade you pack on, and a shade to deepen everything up. I will say that my most used shades in this palette is actually this gray row here. I don't know what it is about it, but I love it. I love it with this shade here called Bubblegum. This shade, I don't know if you can tell the texture in here. These are very wet shadows, almost like a putty. You can even see my fingerprint right there. But look at that. Look at that color payoff. Do you see that? This is phenomenal. So, I could drool over this. It's so beautiful, and the reflect in these are so powerful. Every time I wear this palette, I get compliments for that reflect alone. Ugh, I can't get enough of it. But I love that you have some neutrals in here. That's what I first went into when I used this palette for the first time, because it was a way to introduce myself into the formulation of the brand, because I knew it was pigmented, because it's made for pigmented skin. So yeah, I love it. It's independent owned, black owned, woman owned, stunning packaging, beautiful shadow formula, amazing shimmers, and it's not badly priced. I think this is like $45. So for all of that, well worth it. So my last palette, this one's expensive. I didn't pay full price for it, but it is expensive, and it's none other than the Danessa Myricks The Lightworks Volume 5 palette. This is the I Am palette. One, the packaging, stunning on its own. Two, when I open this up, y'all are gonna flip out. It's beautiful. This retails for $125. I didn't pay $125 for it. I don't think I could stomach that. But knowing what I know now about this formulation, I probably would have. And I just can't get over the shifts in here. Like this blue shift and this green. Now, the thing about this palette is every year she comes out with one for holiday. This year it's all shimmer, so this is the one that I really wanted, because it was going to be an introduction into the brand. So you can see there's a lot of different textures going on. Looking at the sheet that comes with it, there are Heavenly Halos, which are these. These are a Fusion Flake, and then these are Heavenly Halos. Down here, these are Whipped Powder Shifters, whipped powder shifters, and then these two are silk pressed shifters. This is a molten metal, this is a suede shimmer, this is a chrome, a cushion chrome, suede shimmer, and then a suede shimmer. So, a lot of different formulations going on in here. My favorite two shades in here are these two here. These are the whipped powder shifter. The duochrome in these, it's unlike no other. There's nothing else in my collection that tops this. This formula is unmatched on, like, at a regular retailer. Now, as far as compared to indie brand, I don't really know, but I'm absolutely obsessed. Not only are the shimmers in here something so different than anything else I've ever experienced, like, there's true innovation in the formulation of all of these shades. There's also differences in the different formulas. So for instance, these Heavenly Halos, like, these are more toppery shades, and then these like shifters, they're a little bit different too. So within each formula in here, there's a little bit of different texture in them. So it's really based on what's needed to make the shade work the best. So the texture is going to be a little bit different for each one. So these two here, they're suede shimmers. The texture is slightly different because of the different, like, they're different shades. Basically, I'm obsessed with this because the innovation in the formulation is so visionary, so revolutionary. You don't find a lot like this on the market, if anything at all. So for something like this, because it's so revolutionary technology and formulation in here, the price matches the product. I'm obsessed with this. This is the kind of palette that looks good on all skin tones, no matter what. The everyday consumer can use this. The artist can use this. I think this is phenomenal. This is a great medium for all consumers to use. It is an all shimmer palette, so if you're not into that, obviously don't buy it. But if you're someone like me who gets inspired by new formulas, then this is something that I don't think you would hate to have in your collection. It's stunning. I mean, looking at it, it's beautiful. I just think that this is something that it's inspiring. I drool over this palette because it's so beautiful, and I feel so beautiful when I wear it. Every time I wear a shadow in here, compliments out the kazoo. This palette is untouchable in my collection. This will die in the grave with me. Like, when I'm laying there to rest, like this, it'll be like this, because I love it so much. Like, you can't pry this from my hand. If this was educational, my goal was kind of just to shed some light on some information that's in my noggin. It's kind of interesting because I didn't really expect this to be like what I would pull to go to the grave with me. Not mad about it. I'm glad that I did this. It kind of opened my eyes too, as far as like what I want from eyeshadow, what I want as being a makeup user. I hope it did something for you guys. If anything, I hope that this was at least entertaining. So don't forget to check out my other socials. So like Instagram is really big for my project panning and beauty content, and then TikTok is just a little bit of everything under the sun because I'm an indecisive person, so over there is just my platform for literally everything. So regardless, I hope you have a wonderful day or night whenever you're watching this, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. So if you've stuck around this long, you're really cool and I appreciate it, so we'll talk soon.